Good afternoon. This is the March 2nd, 2023 meeting of the Capital Expenditures Committee. We have 3 members of the committee out of the 5, myself, Select Board Member Fabian, and Finance Committee Member Adam Lynch, who I see right there. There he is, Adam Lynch. Our 4th member, Darlene Donnelly, changed residencies very recently and is no longer eligible to serve on the committee. So there are 2 vacancies on the committee. If anyone's interested, please, please feel free to step forward. Okay. The if it's to the committee's if the committee's agrees, we'll go through the we'll do similar to what we did last year. We'll go through the sections of the capital plan and just go down program by program. Mr. Hassett's here, prepared to provide an overview. I thought what might be best from terms of efficiency would be to have the go program section by program section. And then if there are any questions, staff's here available to answer any questions you might have. So I'm going to share screen. Okay, there we go. Oh, everybody got it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, Todd, you want to start?
Sure. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So we're presenting to you a format similar to what you may be used to from what we introduced a year ago. Some of these projects were in the many of these were in the 5-year plan that this committee approved last year. Some have moved around, the years have changed, priorities, etc. I would point out as we start going through this, on the far left column, you'll notice a few notations on a couple of the items, the number 2 in parenthesis or the number 1 in parenthesis. And that references the items that have the number 1 next to them are potentially what we would look to do at the special town meeting in May. These would be funded from existing funds, excuse me, and would allow those projects to move forward right after town meeting and not wait until July 1st. There are 3 of those, which you'll see right toward the top of this first page. A couple of items have the number 2 referenced to the left of the project description. And that these are items that we think potentially may come before the town at a future town meeting, but during FY24. So either the fall of 23 or perhaps next a year from May. As some of these projects, may push out another year, but we thought it was important to disclose what may also come before the town later during FY24. The color highlights you see are summarized at the bottom for those of you who have the handout, and we'll see it a little later on. But this, the highlights, the different colors represent different types of funding. So the plan we have before you, other than borrowing, assumes no use of property tax. This is all from various available funds and surplus free cash. So again, the tax impact would relate potentially to any borrowing authorizations town meeting might in the future, okay, and the annual principal and interest payments going forward on those particular projects would likely be funded through taxation in the future. The plan, we'll go over the whole 5-year plan, but primarily for the upcoming town meeting, the warrant article will focus just on the FY24 items that are approved to move forward. And we will publish the full 5-year plan for the town. So that all being said, I'll sort of quickly walk through the proposed acquisitions and projects. And these are presented in department order, much like we do the operating budget. So, as you know, the fall town meeting approved some further design work on a new fire station, which was $220,000. That work is underway, and should the town move to a next step, we'd be looking at final design and construction documents being developed, followed by construction in a future year. For this model, we're showing final design being funded later in 24 and the construction to be authorized in 25 and start sometime thereafter. These are purely estimates. We don't have good cost estimates. That will come as the design process matures. But we thought it was important to give you a sense of at least the potential magnitude of a new fire station construction. The other item under the select board relates to an annual allocation we have been doing for technology improvements. So we've typically been doing, 75,000 or so a year. This coming year, because of a community compact grant we were able to secure last year, and a lot of the improvements that have been made through our consultant that oversees IT, we actually are in a position where we can take 1 year off from this annual program. And so we're not proposing to appropriate any funds in 24, but as you see going out, we anticipate between 100 and 125,000 per year, which would again relate to non-operating costs associated with technology, hardware, software, network.
We should also point out that has no material effect whatsoever on the implementation of our technology program. There's sufficient balance available to continue moving forward with the funds that we have.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. So in the facilities area, we have a few projects. The first item highlighted in green, the 41,000 would be funded from overlay surplus, which has been released by the Board of Assessors. And this would be to supplement a previous town meeting vote for facility building security. As we worked with the police department in our facilities department to develop the needs at the various town buildings, and then costed these out, we found that our funds were inadequate to achieve what we need to do to secure the town buildings. So this would be a supplemental add-on to, I think we have about 38,000 available currently to complete that project. And again, we'd look to, if it's approved to move forward, fund it from overlay surplus at the special in May, and the capital work could begin, right away in May after approved. The second item is, again, weatherization and stabilization of the Peach Barn. This is potentially a future town meeting consideration. It's not anything we're advocating for the upcoming May town meeting. And I know the select board earlier this week had some further discussion on this. There are some grant opportunities around other improvements to do with the Peach Barn. And we're not at all certain at this juncture how or if this 75,000 would move forward, funded from free cash. You will recall in last year's 5-year plan, we did have a placeholder for 250,000 for a replacement of the roof at the library. They are experiencing some minor leakage and issues, nothing major at this time. We did move this up a year from the plan you saw a year ago. And again, as we get closer, we'll determine whether 25 is the year or whether that can get pushed back. But we do have a new facility director, as you know, and he's involved and will be assisting in evaluating this and deciding at what juncture this may need to move forward. What's new on the facility plan, also related to the public library, is we've started to notice evidence that the HVAC system will likely need to be replaced within the next 5 years. And that's estimated at a cost of around $100,000. Again, not a lot of effort's been put into that other than identifying at this juncture that's a potential need on the 5-year horizon. I don't know, Ari, would you like me to stop at certain points to see if there are questions or just
Sure,
continue?
that's fine, yeah.
So I know at one of the select board meetings, we did talk about the roof for the library. So just to get into a little more detail, so there was some work that was done that affected the roof. I just want to make sure I have it all correct. But also nullified the warranty. Were we able to do anything about that with whoever did the work? Was it a
It was done a
known?
long time ago, and the
Okay.
town did it, from what I understand.
Okay. All right, so then it's not like it was done just recently and it was.
Nate can weigh,
crack-
Nate, you can weigh in on that, right, Nate?
Yeah, I can say what I know, and I know that there was some staining on the roof. The roof section was power washed, from the town, ordered the power washing of the roof, which would most likely void any kind of warranty if it was a 25-year roof. But again, this is something that was done before I started in 2013. So it is it's an old thing that had happened.
Okay,
It's
All right.
unfortunate that it got done, but now we probably took 10 years off the useful life of the roof.
okay. Lesson learned, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's no compensation or anything we can go after. It wasn't a company or anything like that.
No, it was at the direction of the town, again, before my time.
Yeah.
So no, there would be nobody that would be liable or that would pay for that repair at this point.
Okay. And honestly, I do think we need to address, I know what all the professionals say, but just my very layman's opinion, it's starting to look like it needs work. And I think that's the point of hiring a facilities director, so we can stay ahead of these things instead of letting them get to
Absolutely.
this place where now we're really have big problems as opposed to just being proactive. So, okay, thanks.
Right, and that just as a follow-up, Leah, and that's why we thought it important to move it up in the plan. If you look at the plan from a year ago, I think we had it in FY 27,
Yeah,
perhaps 26, but we
26, I believe. Yeah.
Thank you. So we thought it was like you, that we just needed to have it on the radar, and it may come up sooner than we think. So certainly if it stayed on this track, we would be looking at potentially doing the construction in the summer of 24, which is the beginning of our fiscal 25.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So moving on to the police department. As you know, annually, we typically fund at least the purchase of replacement of 2 frontline cruisers, and occasionally, not on an annual basis, but occasionally we do have the need to fund a 3rd vehicle, which is typically an unmarked vehicle or a command vehicle. And this year, in the last couple of years, we've been asking the town to fund about $100,000 each year for 2 cruisers. You'll notice our ask now is $120,000, and this relates to the potential that we've asked the chief and the department are evaluating using hybrid and other alternate vehicles, and they do have a higher cost than a traditional baseline cruiser. So this will allow the department, should the evaluation suggest we move in that direction, they will have adequate funds. You should also note that this is not just the cost of the vehicle, but there's a lot that goes into fully equipping frontline cruisers. And certainly if you have more detailed questions, the chief's better suited than I to address that. We did just recently take delivery of a pickup actually this year as part of this year's, the 23 capital plan. Then the chief informed us earlier today that the other FY23 capital item, the firearms replacement, is getting completed shortly as well. And so again, this is an typical annual capital need, which we usually recommend using free cash to fund. The fire department has a few items. Much of this you've seen from prior years. If you'll recall, at the annual town meeting last May, town meeting approved the authorization to lease purchase a new ladder truck for $1.4 million. And so that was similar to a borrowing authorization. Mechanically, it's a little different for us. But we placed the order for the vehicle, and the chief's been actively involved in the design. It will be specific to our needs. And so construction is underway, but it's quite a long lead time, as you may recall, and costs were escalating. So we did get the order placed quickly last year, and arranged the lease purchase agreement such that the first payment would not be due until June of 24, at which time we hope to have taken delivery of the ladder truck. There's such a lead time, but we had to lock in the financing in order to place the order. So this would be the first payment of about a 10-year payment plan to purchase that large piece of apparatus. And so that you'll see that on the plan, going out, and it's just under $175,000. We don't have a final number because we haven't fully finished equipping it as they're constructing it, but it's within $1,000 of what the payment will likely be. The chief is also advocating for a couple of smaller capital items next year. And these are two that we feel are quite essential to the delivery of public safety services, fire service. And so we're advocating that these two be paid for through the May special town meeting from unused prior capital project balances. So again, we're looking to repurpose other earlier projects that have been completed that have an unused balance. And this would be thermal imaging equipment and firefighter tracking for the apparatus, and also an improvement to the pump operations equipment and valves on their major equipment. So $25,000 for thermal imaging, and the pump operations equipment is $20,000. Also, we have in the 5-year plan replacement of an ambulance in 25, and then we typically are doing that every 3 years. You'll see again in FY28 a higher estimate for the next ambulance in the fleet. The chief has also identified the potential need for an engine replacement, which is targeted for FY27. The two ambulances and the engine replacement, right now we have scheduled as borrowings, and these are not real long-term. We try to pay off the ambulance in 3 to 4 years, but not in this case 375 in one slug. And the engine, which would have a longer lifespan, we might look to finance over a period longer than that.
Todd, if I can just weigh in for a second. There's also the possibility that the ambulance could be funded in a different way. We get the possibility of using ARPA money, which would be an eligible expense for this. It would be through the county allocation, so that would take some time, as we know from history. But it's a good time to be looking at that as an alternative approach.
Yeah, and so should the board opt in it, and it's that option is approved, we would not bring this to town meeting. Those ARPA funds are only available through calendar 24, I believe. So that
Right.
the ambulance you see in the out year would not be eligible for at least for that grant program.
No, not the one the out year, no.
So that's what we're looking at for public safety. Of course, under the select board, you know, we did mention early on about the potential for a new fire station. So there's a lot, and certainly the fire operation is a capital intensive program.
Hey,
Much
Todd,
like, yes,
last year, we approved a utility terrain vehicle for 25,000 in FY '24. What happened to that?
let's see.
The state they created a bond bill to fund fire equipment for rail accidents. It's related to the MBTA expansion, and part of that bond bill, Senator Rodericks added $50,000 to Lakeville to purchase an ATV. So we're waiting on that bond bill to be signed, hopefully sometime in the near future.
Thank you.
We would drop away, yeah.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Shall we move on to Public Works? So in the Public Works, again, another capital intensive part of our service delivery. We've got a number of items, much of which you saw on the plan a year ago. A few things have been moved around based on need. We are asking to continue the roadway improvement program. This is to be used in conjunction with state funds, state so-called Chapter 90 road improvement funds. And with the introduction of this program a couple of years ago, as you all know, we've yielded some tremendous benefit with improvements to the road projects that Superintendent Manise has been able to execute over the last few years, a few of projects of which have been noted statewide for awards in terms of the quality of the end result. So this again, cities and towns do get state funds annually, typically through the Chapter 90 program, but it's not adequate to keep up with the number of road miles we have and the condition of roads. And this has been a tremendous improvement in the overall this section of the capital plan. So we're advocating 375, which is the same as what was appropriated for this year. And we're looking over time to start to move that up as the cost of material and services go up. We just had a regional bid for a lot of these supplies, and we're told that you know, some of the material has risen in price, which is no surprise. So over time, these dollars will not go as far as they do currently. But in any case, we're advocating to continue this program. It's been a very successful to date, and it really helps us start to get a little closer to the curve in terms of the maintenance of our town roads. There's a number of pieces of equipment that the department's looking to do. They're looking to next year replace a sander and do some body work for just over $35,000. There's a need for a storage shed that has a estimated cost of $60,000. And this, I will tell you, we've talked, you know, internally about whether this should be folded into the last item listed under Public Works, which is the facility improvements, which, as you know, got put on hold a year or so ago due to the high increase in construction costs. But Franklin does feel that this could be a real benefit to the department to have this sooner if the facility addition is put off much longer. They're also looking to replace a 4x4 pickup truck and equip it for $70,000. And then another pickup truck 4 years later in FY27. Again, these would all be funded through free cash. The next couple of items we're projecting we will fund through future year overlay surpluses released by the assessors. And it's riding mowers, and a continuation of the bud permit, a material removal program that's been ongoing for a number of years. FY25, they've identified the need for a 1-ton dump truck, and another one in FY28, 4 years later. 75,000 are the estimates at this time. There's also in FY25, you'll see 200,000 with respect to paving the lot at DPW and installing proper drainage. Again, that along with the shed could be sort of packaged potentially with an overall facility expansion. But those are certainly more needs that have been identified that we need to address in the next year or two. Also, there's a sidewalk plow in FY26 for 75,000 with various attachments and equipment. And also the replacement of a dump truck cabin chassis in FY26 and FY28. And the wild card that's unknown or to be determined is what we might consider doing with the addition at the highway facility. And that's why that's notated to be potentially brought before the town later in FY24. And I don't know, Ari or Franklin, if you have anything to add on that note.
No, I don't.
So the superintendent's done a nice job of sort of spreading. You see, there's a lot of needs, equipment in particular, and of course the facility. And the superintendent's done a nice job of prioritizing and sort of spreading and trying to sort of even the annual impact over the 5-year plan. In respect to the transfer station, also under the Public Works Department, they have identified, and this was on our plan, I believe, a year ago, the need to replace the roll-off truck at the transfer station in FY25. So there's no ask for 24. However, the roll-off truck has an estimated cost of about $200,000. And right now we've set aside about $165,000 of that through retained earnings of the enterprise fund. So the hope is that this year ends with positive operations and we're able to get to the 200,000 and again, be able to fund that piece of equipment with no tax impact or no subsidy from the general fund.
I did have a question on that, Todd.
Sure.
So in preparation for this, I kind of I looked over my own, what I had submitted. But I did have 2 other items on the capital for transfer. Were those removed or?
If
They
they
had,
weren't removed, I may have missed them. I'm not sure, but if you want to fill us in and we can.
Through the-
apologize.
so I had the landfill post-closure monitoring and sampling, which was the next step for the post-closure of the landfill, which basically what that does is it's DEP regulations for the next step for the post-closure. That's, for the landfill side of it, not the transfer.
Yep.
And then the other item was the brush removal, which isn't built into our budget. That was 21,000. The last time that was done, I believe, was in 2020. I believe it was 2020. So it's, every couple of years we need to factor this in to get rid of that.
Right, thank you. So I do recall those now. And we did not put it on this plan because we believe that those two items are a little more operating in nature. Certainly, it's more than your annual, each year ongoing costs. And so we would likely, bring that to a future town meeting via a separate, an article separate from the capital plan. The ongoing monitoring is we're doing some monitoring now through the operating budget, and the brush removal, again, doesn't end up yielding an asset or an improvement, if you will, to a town asset. So thank you for clarifying. Those are certainly future needs in the solid waste area, but we didn't believe they belonged in the capital plan.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Keep going. Good.
Okay, the last item in the Public Works area, the Cemetery Commission, you'll recall a year ago had identified an interest and need to install historic granite posts at the Thompson Cemetery. That cost a year ago was estimated at $45,000. The commission did get an updated price closer to $50,000, but also informed us that there's no one currently available to supply those posts. So we've with their approval, we've moved this request out to the second year, or FY25. It's also possible prior to that time that this project might be viewed favorably by the Community Preservation Committee and funded through CPC rather than through the town capital plan. But we had it on the plan a year ago. It's still something the commission would like to see happen, and they're good with pushing this request out another year. The Council on Aging, the Senior Center, as you recall, a year ago, the town approved transfer of $40,000 to do some preliminary feasibility work to consider putting an addition on the Senior Center. We've also subsequently received an earmark grant from the state to assist with this for, I believe, $50,000. So we had intended that this next $60,000 would, if the town wanted to move forward, would result in final plans and bid documents. But as you'll note in the far left, we've said we're not bringing this to the town yet. The initial design work is just getting underway, and we're not ready for May. And this may, pass over into 25, depending on how the project progresses. And again, we've got funds available to cover the $60,000, and there's thought that there will be other opportunities when we get to construction a year or two later. Lastly, in our town capital plan, the Park Commission has completely rethought their various needs. And again, like Public Works has done a nice job of sort of not front loading or having any spike years. They've sort of spread 5 different projects across, one for each year. They're looking next year to ask the town to fund improvements at the Ted Williams Skate Park. And all of these, you'll note, are highlighted in yellow, which suggests that the park retained earnings will be used to fund these various projects. The first 2 listed on there were actually approved in FY23. They don't belong on this exhibit, and they will not be on the final version that goes to the town. But the demolition is getting close to happening, and
We actually just awarded the contract. Yeah.
oh, thank you. Okay.
Today.
So that's fresh, about to start. So you can see they have various projects at Clear Pond and basketball courts, playground equipment, et cetera. All modest, between 25 and 50,000 each year. And
probably
again,
a-
this,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, after you.
It's probably a good time once you're done with this for me to talk a little bit about some of the other ways we're financing capital, not necessarily through the CIP, specifically
Sure,
ARPA
so-
projects. Yeah.
Sure, so I'll just wrap up by saying, so this plan, we believe, is fairly complete in terms of what town meeting would be asked to consider. Certainly with various approvals leading up to town meeting. This does not include, does not reflect school capital. The school department does have a capital plan. To my knowledge, what they're looking to do with Lakeville schools next year, they are funding all through grants or other sources. They're not asking the town. They realize that we've just taken on the $4.2 million window project at Assawamsett, of which the town will be responsible for approximately half of that cost. And you'll see that in our debt budget starting next year, just begin paying that off. It also does not include anything to do with the regional vocational school. And you should know that they have asked each of the member communities to place an article on the annual town meeting warrant to authorize funding a feasibility study for either a renovation or a new school, new facility at Old Colony. Its construction would be several years out, but it certainly will have a debt impact on the community and on taxes in the future. And we just thought it important to just disclose that to you. And in addition to that, Ari will brief you on grants and the recovery plan program, what the select board are looking to do in that area.
Thanks, Todd. So not included on this plan because they are grants not subject to town meeting approval, are several projects that have been funded through the American Recovery Plan, ARPA, which I'm sure you've all heard of. The board has sort of dove in a little bit on a number of projects that are moving along. The first big tranche you might have heard of was for water projects. There's water connections in Clear Pond Park, John Pond Park, and the Old Town Hall. We applied to the county for that funding back in June, just recently got approved. It's taking a long time. So those projects are in design now. We're getting ready to move forward. The board also previously approved resurfacing of the tennis courts at Ted Williams Camp. Sorry, I said Clear Pond Park for water project. I meant Ted Williams Camp. I'm sorry. Anyway, resurfacing the tennis courts at Ted Williams Camp. Also funding, well, part of the funding for the outdoor stage cover, which is going on the stage behind Old Town Hall, is being funded by ARPA money. Also the Gamache Playground, which the bids are actually opening on that in a few weeks. So we'll see how that goes. But there's $170,000 in ARPA for that. And I believe the Park Commission is working on a proposal for the new fields to bring those up to a place where they're usable as well, which would be a sizable project, probably the low six figures somewhere. So,
go ahead.
Sorry, yeah. So there are a number of projects moving along here. Also, as I mentioned, it's possible we may look at an ambulance through the county funding as well. So, Mike, do you want to say something?
Yeah, you're actually going to get that proposal for the North Fields. Is this where I should ask questions about capital in this year's budget, or is that just another time, another meeting? Because I know we're talking about capital for the next 5 years, but I do have some questions for this year. Or is that just another time?
Well, the Capital Expenditures Committee deals with the CIP, Mike. So that's kind of what this meeting is the Capital Expenditures Committee. I'm sure if you have an issue, a question about like timing for a project that's already budgeted, probably best for us to talk offline.
Good. All right. Thank you.
So, so those are the big ones moving along there. There's also the board's always looking at additional funding opportunities. On Monday, the select board met to talk about potential community one-stop grant applications. Those are very early days right now, just basically letters of interest, and not even actual formal grant applications, but those would be several projects as well of sizable amounts. Bridge Street traffic intersection, bathrooms at John Pond Park, and additional improvements at Betty's Neck. So anyway, just wanted to, for full transparency, just kind of lay all those out as well.
And so Ari, if you could just scroll to the bottom.
Yep.
And thank you. So so I just wanted to also point out to the group that so the town's existing debt, we have a few items that will be coming off in the short term. This coming year, FY24, we'll be making the final payment on the library, the library construction. So that 20-year bond will be paid off next year. The regional school debt, and that's excluded by the voters, so that will be a reduction in real estate, potentially. We also have excluded by the voters some regional school construction debt, which matures in 26, so in the third year here. Again, it's not big, neither one is big dollars, but it will be taking some extra tax off the levy, if you will, and you know, potentially making a little room for either the fire station or the old colony project or other future, you know, major debt that the town needs to consider. We have the police station, which I believe doesn't mature until 2034, and the Route 79 project, which has been a little slow going and starting, I think, to get a little pace, and we're on the hook for up to $2.3 million on that, and that will be several years out in terms of paying off the debt. And then lastly, in terms of free cash, so we're asking you to, if everything is approved, that we'd be looking at funding it at $910,000. And just as a point of reference, we're also considering asking the town to set aside funds in a couple of our reserves, the town general stabilization fund and the post-employment benefits trust for future health costs for retirees. And even with that, we're leaving close to $400,000 not appropriated that would give us a nice base to start next year with. So this plan does not bring free cash to zero by any stretch. Just thought that was important for you to know.
We'll also have a much larger than normal free cash number next year anyway, because of the lease agreement with SBA for the Fern Street Tower. It was a one-time payment that the town received after the recap this year for $2.1 million. So at this point, I guess the question is, are there any questions about the committee have any questions about the capital plan? And you know, any thoughts about how you want to dive in and move forward?
And you should also know that we have scheduled next Wednesday evening to review this or some version of this based on your input with the Select Board and Finance Committee. Right.
Hey.
Okay. Leah, I think you're muted.
Sorry, Adam, do you have any other questions?
The only other question I had on is in the park. Last year, we approved parking lot lights for Ted Williams, and I don't see that. And it looks like we're a lot lower in the FY22. So is that no longer
we
needed?
found another way to do that, basically. We worked with MG&E and they put the installs in. Now we're just paying as part of our regular utility fees.
Okay. And did I also hear somebody mention that there's some type of plan, even though it's not on here, to finally do something with those fields that are laid vacant for a while?
So
you want me
yeah,
to say it, or?
yeah, yeah, Mike, that's okay. Go ahead.
So yeah, we I'm presenting it to Ari and Todd tomorrow, so we've done a lot of extensive work on that. Because it, like you said, nothing's been done for years, so we got a bunch of contractors to come in and take a look at it. Frank spent some time on it. So we do have a plan together, which we can do. We're proposing, it's gonna cost $115,000 to do the parking lot with some other additions to it, the road going to it and so forth. So we're hoping this can get financed through whatever Ari says it's gonna be.
Would be
But,
ARPA, yeah.
yeah, through ARPA. So if that goes through, we can, my goal is if it does go through, we can open it up for sporting events in the fall.
Great, okay.
And just to clarify, Adam, yeah, there's two tranches of ARPA. There's the county's tranche, and then there's the town's tranche of ARPA. The town's tranche of ARPA, because of this revenue replacement carve out that allows us to spend any locality, regardless of how much they get, to spend up to $10 million, calling it revenue replacement, which means pretty much any capital project you want to use or revenue replacement. It's pretty open in terms of what we can use it for. Well, the county's tranche, for the most part, aside from a certain amount, can only be used for very specific purposes, like pandemic response, water, sewer, broadband, stuff like that, things you've read about.
Yeah.
So in this case, this would not be eligible for the county piece, but we could certainly use the town money.
Okay.
It'll be the board's call,
That's all I had.
Leah, I don't know if you had anything.
No, just a thought that, like Adam's questions, if anyone's looking at, I don't expect anyone to walk into town meeting with last year's copy, but just if we can have answers available in case someone does walk in and ask exactly those same questions.
So to that point, we've also discussed enhancing the document a little bit with some extra additional footnotes and clarifications regarding ARPA funding and schools and things like that. Richard, as you know, had asked for some things on that as well. And Lorraine had mentioned in the past, has mentioned to me the last few days, some things that she'd like to see. So while we're not going to put that in on those on the matrix, because they're not things that we voted by town meeting, at least not in this form. We're gonna make sure to highlight them, or to have sufficient language for people to be able to see it. So
Yeah.
we'll have those in there.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay.
Yep.
So at this point,
otherwise, I'm all set.
Yeah, okay, is the committee comfortable with voting to recommend the plan?
Yes.
All right.
I'll make.
I'm a
motion.
member, which is odd.
Yeah, I know. Well,
I'm gonna
I'll,
vote on my own plan here. I don't know.
I will make a motion that we approve the FY 2024 proposed capital improvement plan.
Second.
Any
All in favor?
discussion? Any discussion other than that? All right, go ahead. You can ask for all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
AB and I.
Aye. Lynch, aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Great.
And then we
Thank you,
just work
everybody.
on getting 2 more members, like we said at the beginning.
Yeah, I know. I reached out to the moderator today. And we tried to advertise. We've advertised several times in the past for the one member. We haven't gotten any takers. So.
Yeah.
If anyone knows anyone, please encourage them. It's actually it's not a heavy lift to be on the Capital Expenditures Committee, but it is an important role,
Yep, it's like what, maybe 2-3 meetings a year?
if that.
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, heck, I'll do that. I got nothing to do.
You can, Mike. I mean, Darlene Donnelly was on, so she's on
I
Park
mean,
Commission.
if it's only 2 or 3 times a year, I'm glad to do it.
If that, yeah, honestly, I think the last time we met was last year. So
It's
All
not it's not an electric thing, right?
no.
No,
Moderator appoints
I'm
it.
not buying any signs or anything, okay?
So if you want to submit a resume or reach out to Tracy, Mike.
I
She'll
will,
help you out.
okay.
That's great. That's wonderful. Good.
okay,
Okay.
all right.
Motion to
Thank you.
adjourn.
Thank you,
Oh,
everyone. Thank you.
So
Ari,
moved.
Ari and Todd, what's a good
Yes.
time to drop by tomorrow morning? I have a question about the town meeting capital thing. Plus.
Stop by my office. I don't think Todd's in tomorrow. I'll
Okay.
be in at 9. And I have a meeting at 9 and at 10. So I
Okay.
could work it around in there.
All right, great. Thank
Okay.
you.
So thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It has to be either
Second.
Todd or Adam.
Oh,
Second.
please.
All right,
Second.
all those in favor? Aye. Fabian, aye.
Lynch, I.
Sky Eye. Thanks,
All right.
everybody.